Joining me now, Georgia Congressman and House and Energy and Commerce Committee member Buddy Carter. Also with me all morning long, Brian Bremberg and Lee Carter. A clear message, Congressman, what has already been done in terms of our energy sector, one of the greatest, we finally achieve energy independence. What does the road look like ahead for jobs and us losing power and position on the world stage because of this clampdown on production and transportation of energy here?
Well, you're exactly right. We have finally achieved energy independence in this country, and this was no small feat that we were able to do this, to the point that we are actually exporting energy right now, and that is significant, and certainly something as a result of the shale revolution that we've experienced. Now the President Biden is going to be shutting down the Keystone Pipeline, which is going to result in thousands of jobs being lost, billions of dollars in income being lost. It's going to result in higher energy prices here in America, and that's significant, particularly to the lower income, who are going to have to pay more for heating, who are going to have to pay more for gasoline and that type of thing. So that's going to be very significant. It's very unfortunate. It's a step backwards, and I really wish the president would rethink this and reconsider.
And in addition to canceling the Keystone Pipeline, in addition to this moratorium on drilling on federal land, you also have the administration rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement. President Biden issued an executive order to rejoin this global pact to cut greenhouse gas emissions within the next 30 years, something that President Trump exited in 2017. But again, the burden is on the U.S. The burden will ultimately be on those very people who cannot afford a regressive tax in the form of higher energy prices. China, meantime, can continue to build coal-fired power plants.
Well, that's exactly right. The Paris Accords have not changed, and when President Biden re-enters into those accords and puts the United States back into that agreement, then we still have to abide by what existed before, and that is that right now China does not even have to decrease any of their emissions until 2030, whereas we in America have to do even more. You know, we've proven here in the United States that we can be energy efficient, that we can and be good to the environment. In fact, we've decreased our carbon output, our carbon emissions, more in the last decade than the next 12 countries combined. We've shown that we can increase our economy while decreasing our carbon emissions. But to enter into some kind of agreement like this, particularly with China not having to decrease their carbon emissions until the year 2030, whereas they are responsible for a third of all the emissions in the world, that's just simply ludicrous and unfair to Americans.
Lee Carter, jump in.
I think one of the things that we're seeing play out now is this complete division in what people think the answers are. And we know that on the left, the people think the answers are cutting back on energy. And one of the things that I think is in use of oil and gas as energy, one of the things I find so fascinating is that when you ask people how much they think we rely on renewables, they think it's about 30% right now, when the truth is it's less than 10%. So with that being the reality, I can't help but wonder what the real answer is. Is it to tax? Is it to regulate? Is it just to cut back? Or how do we really drive the behavior change that we need in order to combat climate change and the other forces that people have at work?
Well, in my opinion, there's no question. I believe in climate change. I believe the climate is changing. I believe that we have to address it. There's no question about that. I serve in Congress on the Select Committee for Climate Change, and we acknowledge that, and we've addressed it, and we do have to invest in renewables, and we have done that. However, to simply put aside fossil fuels and not have them factored into the future of our energy needs, I think is totally erroneous and is going to result and higher prices, and it's not going to help us with the renewables at all. If you look at what the fossil fuels are emitting now, it's a much cleaner way of getting energy than it was in the past. But if you look at what China and India are doing right now, they're using the old methods and the old coal fire plants, and they are much dirtier than what the new fossil fuels that we're using here in the United States are. So we have to have a combination here. I do believe that we need to move more toward renewables and to cleaner energy. We need to look at nuclear. It's got to be part of our portfolio. Extremely important. So all of that factors into it. But to simply set the fossil fuels aside and to do away with them, I think that's going to lead us into a disaster.
COVID relief negotiations, meantime, Congressman, are in focus. Following a Sunday call with the White House, a bipartisan group of lawmakers is pushing for a bill that targets vaccine funding instead of the very ambitious $1.9 trillion bill pitched by President Biden last week. The lawmakers want to pass more vaccine aid ahead of former President Trump's impeachment trial scheduled for the week of February 8th. Congressman, as a former pharmacist, what do you feel can be done to most improve the vaccine rollout in the U.S.?
Well, the distribution is working. We've got it to the states. It's up to the states to get the administration out there and to get the statewide distribution. And what we've seen is that of all those vaccines that have been delivered to the states, only 42% of them have been administered. And in some of the states, like California, it's down to 36%. So the states have got to do a better job of making sure that they are getting those vaccines that have been distributed to them, getting them out and getting them administered. One of the things that we can do to improve the administration is to utilize pharmacies. 95% of all Americans live within 5 miles of a pharmacy. We should be utilizing independents as well as chain pharmacies to make sure that we're getting the administration of the vaccines out there. It is a problem, and it has turned into more of a problem. However, keep in mind that 3 days after Joe Biden was president, that we were at that time getting 1.1 million doses of vaccine per day administered. So that is significant. We will meet that 100 million for the first 100 days, and that'll be important. But we can do even better than that, especially when you think about the fact that we're fixing to have AstraZeneca as well as Johnson & Johnson in a couple of weeks. Hopefully they'll be getting their EUAs and be able to get that vaccine added into our supply as we have now.
Congressman Buddy Carter, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thank you.